We're in our neighbor's field this morning working on mulching our freshly planted garlic. I'm standing in front of a pile of newly deposited mulch, doing some very minor tweaks to this pile to help it break down, absorb more water, balance and equalize, become more uniform. This applies to sawdust, to wood chips, to any sort of carbon mulch, even leaves. Let me explain what sort of little tricks I'm doing here that might be helpful to you if you get a pile of mulch. What this pile looked like when it first was deposited this summer was like this. It's a very common picture. If somebody comes with a dump truck load of wood chips or sawdust or whatever and they dump it, it tends to make a little mountain, the angle of repose where it falls like that. What happens is the default way that piles like this are deposited tend to be incredibly good at shedding water. We had a pretty dry, hot summer. We finally started getting some rains, but this sort of geometry, this sort of default layout sheds most of that water, it sheds most of the snow. And so this mulch, sitting here for months and months, is still extremely dusty and dry. This will sit like this for years sometimes if you don't change the shape of the mulch. Let me explain. You can see I've already started in this area, and what I'm doing is, in this case, I'm using a hay fork because that works well with this type of material. And you can see there's water, there's rain that infiltrated just a little bit, about an inch or two, and then it is bone dry just a little ways down. By taking this mountain and spreading it out just a little bit, making it a little bit flatter on the edges, now when it rains a whole lot, the water comes down, and if it's torrential, it can pool here and infiltrate down. It's a way to have huge amounts, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water potentially soak through your mulch while you're waiting to use it. We can flatten the whole pile out, or I can simply go along the whole pile and basically make swales. Each ring of these will help infiltrate more water, and it's not a massive amount of moving on my part. In fact, this really basic technique is actually an amazing opportunity to visualize the concept of a swale. We talk about them extensively in our videos. It's a very common permaculture term. And here is a great way to visualize it. You've got a hill. You imagine water running down this hill. If it pours intensely here, it's just going to rush right down the hill. Probably will erode and take soil with it. And so this act of drawing material out on contour, basically this is a line of equal elevation. I'm going right around this mountain. Very simple. I'm not moving huge amounts of material, just enough. Now the water rushes down, but whoops, it hits this impediment, it equalizes across this, and it infiltrates down. Each time we do these little swales, we're encouraging water to slow down, to spread, and to sink in. If we were doing this in a landscape, this would be the place where you'd plant your trees. And this would be your walkway when it's dry. I think that's all I need to convey in this video. If you get a pile of mulch and you'd like it to start taking on water, you'd like it to start developing fungal networks, moving towards compost, swale it. If you have a steep landscape and you want it to hold on to more water, infiltrate, build soil, and give you lots of planting areas, swale it. Really simple idea. Certainly if you have applications for fresh, raw mulch, then by all means this doesn't really apply. Just move it around. It'll infiltrate and break down on its own in place. But this is a great way to have a static pile move towards being very fertile with a very little amount of interaction. That same pile swaled out to encourage more absorption of water turns into this after a little while. This is the kind of material I'd like to mulch with. Way more fertile, way higher density of nourishment for the garden.